Tonight's story is called Don't Look Behind You. The darkness hit Stephen like a physical blow. One moment, the sodium glow of the streetlights cast their familiar orange haze on the sidewalk. The next, he was plunged into an inky blackness that felt thick and suffocating. The remnants of his pleasant buzz evaporated, replaced by a cold, prickling fear. He wasn't in the wilderness, just a well-worn path through his own damn neighborhood, yet his heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He cursed himself. 3 beers at happy hour with the guys. Just one to unwind, he said in a familiar lie that his liver knew all too well. Now the world swam a little. The sidewalk slanted under his feet. He took a deep breath, trying to project a sense of calm. Drunk or not, he knew these streets like the back of his hand. Just a mile from home. Then he heard it. The shuffling sound started. A slow, rhythmic scrape that seemed to originate from the shadows at the far end of the deserted block. It was a sound devoid of purpose, more like a drag than a walk, accompanied by a low, mournful moan that sent shivers down Stephen's spine. The hairs on his arms stood on end, prickling against the sudden coolness of the night. He strained his eyes, peering into the blackness. The moon, a sliver of silver high above, cast no light on the approaching form. The shuffling grew closer, the moaning rising in pitch. An overwhelming urge to turn and run slammed into him, but some deep-seated fear, a primal instinct stronger than the alcohol, kept his feet rooted to the spot. Then he saw it, a faint, pulsating light, a sickly yellow that seemed to emanate from within the darkness itself. It had no discernible shape, no source, just a wavering luminescence that bubbled closer with each dragging scrape. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to flee, but a morbid curiosity paralyzed him. He was trapped, a fly caught in the web of his own drunken bravado. The light stopped a few feet in front of him, pulsing faster, casting an otherworldly glow on the cracked pavement. Suddenly, the moaning ceased, replaced by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through his bones. Stephen choked back a whimper, his breath catching in his throat. Then, from the heart of the pulsating light, a shape began to coalesce. It formed slowly like a sculptor molding clay in the dark. A vaguely humanoid figure emerged, tall and skeletal, its limbs impossibly long and thin. Its head, shrouded in the pulsating light, remained unseen. But 2 glowing red orbs like burning coals appeared in the darkness, where its eyes should be. Stephen's mind reeled. Was this a hallucination? A product of his inebriated mind? He squeezed his eyes shut, willing the horrific vision away. But when he opened them, the creature stood there, unwavering. It raised a gnarled skeletal hand, its long bony fingers tipped with blackened claws, and pointed towards the nearby alleyway. A primal terror, cold and suffocating, filled Stephen's chest. What it wanted, where it wanted him to go, he didn't dare imagine. But the fear was eclipsed by a sudden surge of defiance, a shot of adrenaline fueled by a lifetime of watching cheesy horror movies. He wasn't some helpless damsel in distress. This was his neighborhood, his street. He wasn't running from a monster, not without a fight. Who are you? His voice came out shaky, a pathetic squeak in the oppressive silence of the night. The creature remained silent, its glowing eyes boring into him. The hand holding the claws remained outstretched, the point unwavering. Stephen took a shaky step back. I said, who are you? The creature tilted its head, the coals of its eyes seeming to flicker. Then, in a voice like nails scraping on a chalkboard, it rasped, the Collector. The world hung in the air, heavy with menace. Collector of what? Souls, perhaps? Stephen's bravado sputtered and died. The Collector's hand gestured again, more insistent this time. The alleyway loomed ahead, a gaping maw of darkness, even deeper than the night itself. Stephen wasn't going down without a fight. He fumbled for his phone, its screen a pale rectangle in the darkness. Trying to call the police, he slurred, brandishing the phone like a weapon. His voice was a pathetic bluff. He knew, but it was all he had. The Collector chuckled. a sound like dry leaves rustling in a dead wind. "There are no rules here," it rasps. The phone slipped from Stephen's grasp, clattering uselessly onto the sidewalk. Panic clawed at his throat. He was trapped, a mouse cornered by a hungry cat. But Stephen wasn't done yet. He remembered a story his grandfather used to tell, a tale of warding off evil with iron. With a desperate hope, he fumbled for his keys, their coldness a comfort against his clammy palm. He held them aloft, the metal glinting a dull silver in the sickly light. The collector tilted his head further, its red eyes narrowing. A low growl rumbled from its unseen throat, the ground vibrating beneath Stephen's feet. The creature took a slow, deliberate step forward, and Stephen instinctively mirrored it, his back pressed against the cold brick wall of a nearby house. "Back off!" he roared, his voice raw with fear but laced with a desperate defiance. The collector chuckled again, a sound that crawled under Stephen's skin and burrowed into his bones. Then with unnatural speed, the creature lunged. Stephen threw himself sideways, and the scrape of claws against brick echoing in the night as the creature missed its mark by a hair's breadth. He scrambled to his feet, a searing pain shooting through his ankle as he twisted it on the uneven ground. He hopped, adrenaline masking the injury, his gaze darting around for an escape route. The alleyway remained his only option, the darkness within it yawning like a hungry maw. But what awaited him there? The collector loomed closer, its skeletal frame silhouetted against the pulsating yellow light. Its bony fingers twitched, and shadows detached from the darkness around them, taking grotesque shapes, writhing serpents, clawed hands reaching from beyond the veil. They surrounded Stephen, hissing and snarling, their hungry eyes glowing a faint red. Panic overwhelmed him. He stumbled back, the brick wall offering no comfort. His mind raced, searching for a solution, a way to escape this nightmare. Then a memory flickered, a documentary about ancient rituals, a desperate plea to banish a demon with fire. With a surge of hope, Stephen ripped open his jacket, his fingers finding a lighter, tucked away in a forgotten pocket. He flicked it open, the flame a tiny beacon of defiance in the oppressive darkness. "Get back!" he screamed, brandishing the lighter like a torch. The shadows recoiled slightly, their hisses turning into frightened shrieks. Desperate, Stephen ran towards the alleyway, the shadows parting before him as if in fear of the tiny flame. But the collector remained still, its eyes burning with an unholy fury. Stephen knew this wasn't over. He plunged into the alleyway, the darkness engulfing him like a cold, wet shroud. The stench of decay assaulted his nostrils, and he gagged, tripping over unseen debris. He stumbled on, fueled by sheer terror, the flame from the lighter casting a grotesque shadow on the damp brick walls. Behind him he could hear the guttural growl of the collector, the rasping of claws against stone. He dared not look back, afraid of what he might see. He pushed forward, lungs burning, heart hammering against his ribs. The alleyway seemed endless, twisting and turning, a labyrinth designed to trap him. Every turn led to another dead end, another wall of darkness. He tripped again, scraping his knee on a broken glass. A choked sob escaped his lips, a sound lost in the oppressive silence. Then, just as despair threatened to consume him, he saw a glimmer of light ahead. It was faint, barely a pinprick in the darkness. But it was there. Hope surged through him, propelling him forward. He ran, ignoring the pain in his ankle, the ragged gasp escaping his lips. As he drew closer, he realized the light was coming from a sewer grate at the end of the alley. It wasn't much, but it was an escape route. With a final burst of energy, Stephen reached the grate. It was rusted shut, but with a desperate heave, he managed to pry it loose. The stench of sewage wafted up, gagging him, but he didn't care. He scrambled down the ladder into the darkness below. He landed hard on the slick concrete floor. The stench was overwhelming. But above him he heard the frustrated roar of the collector, the sound of scraping claws against the metal grate. It couldn't get to him down here. Relief washed over him, a wave so powerful it nearly knocked him off his feet. But the relief was short-lived. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he realized he wasn't alone. Glowing red eyes, dozens of them, stared back at him from the inky blackness of the tunnels. The air grew thick with the stench of decay and the skittering of unseen things. Stephen was trapped, not by the collector, but by something far worse, by a legion of nameless horrors that lurked in the bowels of the city. He had escaped the frying pan only to land squarely in the fire.